Welcome to another episode of Mind Matters, where we dive deep into the intricacies of our thoughts and emotions. I'm your host, Sarah, and today we're tackling a topic that resonates with so many: overthinking and how it can impact our relationships. Joining me today is Dr. Ben Turner, a clinical psychologist with over a decade of experience in relationship counseling. Ben, it's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. I'm excited to discuss this topic because overthinking is something I see frequently in my practice. It's fascinating yet troubling how our minds can sometimes take over, acting as a third party in our relationships, creating doubt and tension where there needn't be any.
Absolutely. Overthinking can lead to a cycle of worry and uncertainty. Can you share some common signs that someone might be overthinking in their relationship? I think many listeners would appreciate knowing what to look out for.
Certainly, one of the most common signs is excessive rumination. This is when individuals replay conversations or situations repeatedly in their minds, often focusing on perceived mistakes or miscommunications. Another indicator is the habit of seeking constant reassurance from their partner. Instead of feeling secure, they might question their partner's feelings or intentions, which can create unnecessary tension. In some cases, overthinking can lead to withdrawal, where one partner consistently pulls away due to fears and insecurities.
Those are insightful observations, Ben. It seems like overthinking can manifest in various ways, each impacting the relationship differently. Could you elaborate on how this cycle of overthinking affects not just the individual but also their partner?
Certainly, when one partner is caught in the web of overthinking, it can create an emotional distance between them. The partner who is overthinking might become less present or engaged, leading the other partner to feel neglected or unappreciated. This can spiral into misunderstandings, where the partner feels pushed away, creating a feedback loop of insecurity and doubt. The key is communication. When partners openly discuss their feelings, it can help dismantle those walls and foster understanding.
Welcome back to our ongoing exploration of overthinking in relationships. In our last episode, we touched on how overanalyzing thoughts can disrupt the connection between partners. Today, let's dive deeper into the triggers that lead to this excessive rumination. What do you think are some common scenarios that cause people to spiral into overthinking?
Absolutely, triggers can vary widely. Often, it starts with everyday stressors, like a partner's late response to a text or a seemingly dismissive comment. These minor events can morph into mountains of insecurity and doubt. What's critical is recognizing that our minds can distort reality, leading us to interpret things in the worst possible light. This is where self-awareness becomes crucial in halting that cycle.
That makes a lot of sense. Self-awareness is vital. But what about the role of communication? How can open dialogue with a partner help mitigate the effects of overthinking? It seems like having those honest conversations could be a game changer.
Exactly. Communication is the antidote to overthinking. When partners express their feelings openly, it diminishes the unknowns that fuel our thoughts. Even just a simple check-in can clarify intentions and reduce assumptions. However, it's also essential to create a safe space where both partners feel comfortable sharing without fear of judgment. This openness builds trust, which can tremendously lessen the urge to overanalyze each other's actions.
That's a great point about trust. So, what strategies can couples implement to improve this safe space? Are there specific techniques or practices you would recommend?
One effective technique is practicing active listening. Instead of planning your response while the other person speaks, focus entirely on understanding their perspective. Another practice is setting aside regular, relationship check-ins. This is a dedicated time to discuss feelings and concerns without distractions. What's crucial here is that both partners approach these discussions with the intention of understanding, not defending. This can foster a deeper connection and diminish the urge to overthink.
Those are fantastic strategies. It sounds like creating a routine can really help solidify communication. How can couples ensure that these discussions remain productive and don't devolve into arguments?
Good question. Setting ground rules is essential. For instance, agreeing to avoid interruptions and to focus on I statements can help keep conversations constructive. Also, timing matters. Having these discussions when both partners are calm and not in the heat of an argument makes a huge difference. Lastly, being mindful of tone and body language can prevent misunderstandings. If both partners come in with a mindset of collaboration rather than confrontation, the conversations will likely be more fruitful.
Welcome back to the podcast. In our previous episodes, we've delved deep into the nuances of overthinking in relationships, especially how it can morph into an invisible third party. Today, let's explore how overthinking manifests differently in various types of relationships. For example, how do you think it affects romantic partnerships compared to friendships?
That's a great point. In romantic relationships, overthinking often leads to anxiety about commitment, compatibility, and future plans. Partners may replay conversations or analyze text messages in minute detail, which can create a sense of distrust or pressure. In friendships, however, overthinking might manifest as worrying about social dynamics. Are you being left out or misunderstood? It can create a rift in both types of relationships if left unchecked.
Absolutely, and I think that social media has exacerbated these issues. With constant connectivity, people often find themselves comparing their relationship status with others. How do you think this impacts overthinking?
Social media bombards us with images and narratives that seem perfect, which can trigger a cycle of overthinking. People start questioning their own relationships based on curated posts they see. For instance, if a couple shares a romantic getaway, someone might wonder why their partner isn't as spontaneous, leading to feelings of inadequacy or self-doubt. This can distort reality and make individuals feel that their relationships aren't good enough, fueling that third-person perspective we discussed.
Exactly. It's like a vicious cycle. So, considering that, what practical strategies do you recommend for someone who realizes that their overthinking is ruining their relationships?
One effective strategy is mindfulness. Taking a moment to breathe and become aware of the present can help interrupt those spiraling thoughts. Journaling is also an excellent tool. Writing down your feelings can provide clarity and help you separate your perceptions from reality. Lastly, open communication with your partner or friends about your feelings can reduce misunderstandings and foster deeper connections, allowing you to fight that third-person influence together.
Welcome back to our podcast, where we're diving deep into the complexities of relationships and the impact of overthinking. Today is part 4 of our series, Overthinking Everything, when your mind becomes the third person in the relationship. Let's pick up where we left off. Last time, we touched on how overthinking can create a barrier between partners. Can you elaborate on how this barrier manifests in everyday interactions, especially in communication?
Absolutely. When someone tends to overthink, they often find themselves caught in a loop of analyzing every word, every gesture from their partner. This can lead to misinterpretations. For instance, if one partner doesn't respond immediately to a text, the other might start to wonder if something's wrong or if they're upset. This overanalysis can spiral into unnecessary arguments or distance. It's crucial to remember that communication is a two-way street, and often, the assumptions we make can be far from the reality.
That's a great point. The assumptions we make can really alter the dynamics of a relationship. So, how do we counteract this phenomenon? Is there a way to train our minds to recognize when we're overthinking, and how to bring ourselves back to the present moment?
Definitely. One effective method is mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness can help individuals become aware of their thoughts without judgment. For example, when you catch yourself spiraling into overthinking, take a moment to pause and breathe. Grounding techniques, such as focusing on your 5 senses, can also redirect your thoughts. Another strategy is open communication with your partner. Expressing your thoughts and fears can dispel those nagging worries. It not only reassures you but also strengthens trust and intimacy in the relationship.
Welcome back to part 5 of our series on overthinking in relationships. Today, we're diving deeper into how overthinking can turn our minds into the proverbial third person in our relationships. So, let's talk about how this mental noise can interfere not just with our feelings, but also with our partner's perception of us. Do you think overthinking creates a barrier that prevents authentic communication?
Absolutely. When we're caught in a loop of overthinking, we often create narratives that distort reality. For instance, we might misinterpret a partner's silence as disinterest or anger. This can lead to assumptions that are far from the truth, and instead of addressing our concerns directly, we may withdraw or become defensive. This is detrimental because it creates a cycle of misunderstanding. Have you seen this play out in your own experiences?
Definitely. I've noticed that when I overthink, I tend to hold back from discussing what's really bothering me, fearing that it might lead to conflict. But that silence often festers, making the situation worse. How do you suggest listeners break this cycle of overthinking and open up more effectively with their partners?
A great approach is to practice mindfulness. When you notice those racing thoughts, pause and take a breath. Ask yourself if there's any solid evidence behind those thoughts. Additionally, setting aside time for honest and open conversation can also be key. Create a safe space where both partners can share their thoughts without judgment. This can help dispel those assumptions that fuel overthinking. What strategies do you think are most effective for initiating these conversations?
Welcome back to our podcast on Overthinking Everything, when your mind becomes the third person in the relationship. In our previous segments, we've explored the roots of overthinking and how it can impact communication. Today, I'm excited to dive deeper into practical strategies for managing those intrusive thoughts that can often hijack our relationships. So, what are some immediate steps our listeners can take when they find themselves spiraling into overthinking?
Great question. One of the most effective strategies is mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness helps ground us in the present moment and can be a powerful antidote to overthinking. Techniques like deep breathing or even a quick body scan can regain some control over our racing thoughts. Also, journaling can be transformative. Writing down those swirling thoughts not only helps to clarify them but also makes them seem less daunting when they're on paper. What's your experience with mindfulness, and do you have other tools you'd recommend?
Absolutely, I've found mindfulness to be invaluable. But I think it's important to highlight that these techniques can take time to master. Some people might feel frustrated if they don't see immediate results. How can someone stay committed to these practices, especially when the urge to overthink creeps back in?
That's a crucial point. Commitment can be challenging, especially when you're caught in the cycle of overthinking. One approach is to establish a routine. Even setting aside just 10 minutes a day for mindfulness or journaling can create a habit over time. Additionally, exploring accountability, like joining a group or finding a buddy to share your goals with, can create motivation. And let's not forget the power of self-compassion during this journey. When we falter or slip back into overthinking, it's essential to remind ourselves that it's a process, and progress isn't always linear.
Welcome back to part 7 of our deep dive into overthinking and its impact on relationships. Today, we're still exploring how when our minds take on that third-person role, it can create chaos. To kick things off, I want to revisit the concept of self-doubt. Guest, how do you think self-doubt fuels overthinking in relationships, and what can couples do to combat it?
That's a great question. Self-doubt often manifests as second-guessing every decision we make, wondering if we said the right thing or if our partner truly cares. This can lead to a cycle where we continually analyze our interactions, which can be exhausting. Couples can combat this by fostering open communication. Sharing insecurities can help partners understand that they aren't alone in feeling this way. They can also practice mindfulness to ground themselves in the present moment, which diminishes the urge to overthink.
Absolutely. Mindfulness seems like a powerful tool. But what about external influences? Friends or social media can exacerbate these feelings. How do those external factors contribute to overthinking, and what strategies can individuals use to filter out these distractions?
External influences definitely play a significant role in how we perceive our relationships. Social media, for instance, can create unrealistic expectations by showcasing only the best moments of others' lives, leading us to compare ourselves unfavorably. To filter out these distractions, I recommend setting boundaries around social media use, maybe designating specific times to check updates or unfollowing accounts that trigger negative feelings. Additionally, surrounding ourselves with supportive friends who uplift rather than criticize can create a safe space to reflect on our relationships without unnecessary external pressure.
Those sound like practical and actionable steps. Now, let's talk about the role of mental health in this dynamic. Many people struggle with anxiety and depression, which can heighten overthinking. In your experience, how can individuals with these challenges navigate their relationships without feeling overwhelmed?
Navigating relationships while dealing with mental health issues can be tricky, but it's not impossible. Open dialogue about mental health is crucial. Partners should create a supportive environment where they can express their feelings without judgment. It might also be beneficial to establish routines or rituals that provide a sense of stability and predictability, like regular date nights or check-ins. This can help alleviate anxiety and make it easier to focus on the positive aspects of the relationship. Seeking professional help through therapy can also provide tools to manage overthinking effectively.
Welcome back to our deep dive into overthinking and its impact on relationships. In our previous parts, we discussed how overthinking can create barriers to communication. Today, let's explore how it can lead to misunderstandings. Guest, can you share some common ways that overthinking manifests in relationships and how it can distort the reality of a situation?
Absolutely. One of the most common ways overthinking manifests is through misinterpretation of words or actions. For instance, if one partner doesn't respond immediately to a text, the other might spiral into thoughts questioning their commitment or their feelings. This often leads to unnecessary anxiety and can create tension. It's all about how we fill in the gaps when we don't have immediate answers. Instead of viewing it as a benign delay, the overthinker might conjure up worst-case scenarios, which can lead to distrust and conflict.
That's a great point. It's fascinating how our minds can create entire narratives based on our fears or insecurities. What advice would you give to someone who finds themselves stuck in that cycle of overthinking? How can they break free from those negative thought patterns?
One effective strategy is to practice mindfulness. When you notice those swirling thoughts, try to ground yourself in the present. Techniques like deep breathing, journaling, or even discussing your thoughts with your partner can help. It's important to articulate what you're feeling instead of letting those feelings fester. Often, just by expressing doubts or concerns, you can unveil the truth behind your overthinking. Communication is key. It can help to reassure you and also clarify any misconceptions.
I love the emphasis on communication. It's vital, yet sometimes people fear opening up because they worry their partner might dismiss their feelings. How can someone express their need to talk about these thoughts without feeling vulnerable or worried about being judged?
That's a valid concern. One approach is to frame the conversation positively. Instead of saying, "I need to talk about something that's bothering me," you could say, "I want to share some thoughts I've been having because I value our connection." This shifts the focus from a negative to a constructive dialogue. It's also helpful to choose a calm, neutral moment to bring up these discussions, rather than during a conflict. Creating a safe space where both partners feel heard can significantly ease that vulnerability.
Welcome back to our ongoing series on Overthinking Everything. In our last segment, we touched on how overthinking can distort our perception of reality in relationships. Today, let's dive deeper into the triggers of overthinking. What do you think typically initiates this spiral of thoughts, especially in romantic connections?
That's a great question. Often, it starts with a small insecurity or a misunderstanding. For instance, if one partner sends a text and the other doesn't respond immediately, the mind can race with thoughts like, "Are they upset with me?" Or, "Did I say something wrong?" These thoughts can snowball quickly, making the individual feel anxious or even paranoid.
Absolutely. And it seems like social media plays a huge role in amplifying those insecurities too, right? With constant access to each other's lives, it can lead to even more overthinking. How do you think couples can navigate this tricky territory?
You're spot on. Social media can create unrealistic comparisons. Couples should establish clear communication and mutual boundaries regarding social media use. For example, if one partner feels uneasy about something they're seeing online, it's crucial to voice that concern. Open dialogue helps dispel those spiraling thoughts before they take over, fostering a deeper understanding.
I love that idea. Communication is key. But what about when overthinking becomes habitual? When someone feels stuck in that cycle, what strategies can they implement to break free?
Breaking the cycle definitely requires conscious effort. One effective method is mindfulness. By practicing mindfulness techniques, such as meditation or journaling, individuals can start to identify their thought patterns. This awareness can help them recognize when they're overthinking, allowing them to redirect their focus to the present moment, which is crucial for maintaining emotional balance.
Welcome back to Overthinking Everything. In our previous episodes, we've explored how overthinking can invade our personal lives and relationships. Today, we're diving deeper into how this mental habit can act like a third person in a relationship, complicating communication and emotional connection. I'm really excited to continue this conversation with our guest, Dr. Sarah Thompson, a clinical psychologist specializing in relationship dynamics. So, Sarah, how does overthinking typically manifest in romantic relationships?
Great to be back, and that's a great question. Overthinking often manifests as excessive rumination about interactions or situations. For example, someone might replay a conversation multiple times, analyzing every word and tone. This not only creates anxiety but can distort reality. Partners may start questioning each other's intentions or feelings, leading to misunderstandings. The third person, in this case, is the overactive mind that interprets events and emotions, often inaccurately. It's important to recognize these thought patterns to prevent them from eroding trust and intimacy.
That makes a lot of sense. It's almost like a filter that distorts the lens through which we view our relationship. So, what can couples do to mitigate the effects of overthinking? Are there practical strategies that can help re-establish a clear line of communication?
Absolutely. One effective strategy is establishing check-in times for honest communication. By setting aside time to discuss feelings, assumptions, and worries, couples can create a safe space to air thoughts without judgment. Additionally, mindfulness practices can help partners stay present and reduce the tendency to overanalyze. Journaling can also be beneficial. It allows individuals to express their thoughts on paper, which can clarify and sometimes even alleviate the burden of overthinking. Ultimately, it's about fostering a culture of openness where both partners feel safe to express themselves.
Those are some excellent strategies. It's all about making space for vulnerability, isn't it? But what about the individuals who might struggle with these exercises? How can they begin to shift their mindset if they've been stuck in overthinking for a long time?
Great point. Shifting from a place of constant overthinking to one of clarity takes time and patience. A good starting point is recognizing cognitive distortions, those negative thought patterns that often fuel overthinking. Techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, can be incredibly beneficial for individuals to reframe their thoughts. Additionally, practicing self-compassion is vital. It helps ease the harsh self-criticism that often accompanies overthinking. Encourage individuals to celebrate small victories in their journey towards clearer thinking, as every step counts towards healthier relationship dynamics.
Welcome back to our ongoing series on Overthinking Everything. In our last episode, we explored how overthinking can manifest in our relationships. Today, I want to dig deeper into the concept of our minds becoming a sort of third person in the relationship. Have you noticed that overthinking often creates scenarios that aren't even real? How does this affect trust between partners?
Absolutely, it's fascinating but troubling. When one partner starts to overthink, they might conjure up scenarios where they feel betrayed or neglected, even when nothing has happened. This can lead to a breakdown in trust because the partner who is overthinking may start to project their insecurities onto the other person. They might question their partner's motives or actions based on their own fears rather than any actual evidence, which can create unnecessary conflict.
That makes a lot of sense. It's almost like the overthinker is having conversations with themselves and pulling their partner into a narrative that doesn't even exist. What are some practical ways you think individuals can combat this tendency to overthink? Can open communication play a role?
Definitely, open communication is crucial. It's important for partners to create a safe space where they can express their feelings without fear of judgment. One effective technique is the check-in method, where both partners regularly set aside time to discuss any worries or anxieties openly. This can help to dispel misunderstandings before they escalate. Additionally, practicing mindfulness can help individuals recognize when they are spiraling into overthinking and ground themselves in the present moment.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the complexities of overthinking in relationships. In our previous episodes, we've explored how overthinking can destabilize communication and create misunderstandings. Today, we're going to focus on how this pattern develops and its impact on intimacy. Overthinking often leads us to second-guess our partner's words or actions, which can create distance. What have you seen in your practice regarding this phenomenon?
It's fascinating, really. Overthinking can stem from various sources, like past traumas or insecure attachment styles. When individuals constantly analyze their partner's behavior, they often project their insecurities onto the relationship, interpreting innocent actions negatively. This can lead to a cycle of doubt and anxiety. Each time one partner withdraws due to feeling misunderstood, the other may overthink even more, creating a feedback loop that erodes trust and intimacy.
Exactly. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more we overthink, the more we create scenarios that may not even be true. It's a bit like having a third person in the relationship, our own overactive minds. How can couples learn to break this cycle? What practical steps can they take to address this?
Communication is key. Couples need to create a safe space to express their feelings and fears without judgment. Practicing active listening is crucial. When one partner shares their concerns, the other should listen fully before responding. This can help minimize misunderstandings. Additionally, couples can benefit from mindfulness exercises, which can ground them in the present rather than getting lost in their thoughts. Techniques like journaling or seeking therapy can also help them unpack their thoughts and emotions in a constructive manner.
Welcome back to our podcast, where we're diving deep into the complexities of relationships, particularly how overthinking can act like a third person in the relationship. In our previous segments, we explored the roots of overthinking and its impacts. Today, I want to focus on the practical strategies that couples can use to manage overthinking. What are some techniques you found effective in addressing this issue?
Absolutely. One of the most powerful techniques is mindfulness. Encouraging both partners to practice mindfulness helps them stay present and grounded, reducing the tendency to spiral into overthinking. This can involve simple practices like meditation or even mindful breathing exercises. When both partners are aware of their thoughts and feelings, it becomes easier to address issues directly without letting the mind run away with assumptions or fears.
That's a great point. Mindfulness not only helps in managing individual thoughts but also fosters better communication between partners. Speaking of communication, how can couples create a safe space for discussing their overthinking without judgment? It seems crucial for breaking the cycle.
Creating a safe space involves establishing ground rules for discussions. Partners should agree to approach these conversations with openness and empathy. Using I statements can help express feelings without laying blame. For instance, saying, "I feel anxious when you don't respond quickly," rather than, "You never text me back," can prevent defensiveness. Additionally, setting aside dedicated time to discuss these thoughts can help both partners feel heard and understood, ultimately reducing the urge to overthink.
Welcome back to our ongoing discussion about overthinking and how it can infiltrate our relationships. In our last segment, we touched upon recognizing the signs of overthinking. Today, I want to dig deeper into how this habit creates a third entity in our partnerships. When we overanalyze every action or word, it can feel like we're not just engaging with our partner, but also with our own internal monologue. What are your thoughts on how this dynamic plays out in a relationship?
Absolutely, it's like having an unwanted guest who's constantly critiquing every interaction. When one partner starts to overthink, it can create a barrier. They might begin to question their partner's intentions or feel insecure about their own worth in the relationship. This creates a cycle of doubt that can be exhausting for both parties. Instead of addressing concerns openly, the overthinker might suppress their feelings, leading to resentment. Have you seen this play out in your own experiences or with people you've spoken to?
Yes, I have. It's fascinating yet troubling how often this happens. I've seen friends spiral into anxiety over minor misunderstandings, often making mountains out of molehills. You mentioned the cycle of doubt. Do you think there are effective strategies that couples can employ to break this cycle? How can they communicate more openly to prevent overthinking from taking a front seat in their relationship?
Great question. One effective strategy is establishing a safe space for open dialogue. Partners should regularly check in with each other, creating a habit of discussing feelings, fears, and doubts without judgment. This can help reassure both partners and diminish the overthinking that often thrives in silence. Additionally, practicing mindfulness can ground individuals, helping them separate their thoughts from their feelings and allowing them to respond rather than react. Does that resonate with what you've seen work for couples?
Welcome back to our deep dive on overthinking in relationships. We've been addressing how this phenomenon can create a sort of third party in our romantic lives. Let's discuss practical ways people can start to combat overthinking. What are some strategies you found effective?
One powerful strategy is mindfulness. When we practice being present, we can interrupt the cycle of negative thoughts and avoid spiraling into overthinking. Techniques like meditation or simply taking a moment to breathe deeply can ground us. They remind us to focus on what's happening right now instead of getting lost in what ifs and should haves. How about journaling? I believe it helps to externalize thoughts that might otherwise swirl endlessly in our minds.
Absolutely. Journaling can serve as a release valve for those pent-up thoughts. It's interesting how writing things down not only clarifies what we're feeling but can also reveal patterns in our thinking. Many people might not realize how repetitive their worries are until they see them on paper. What do you think about the role of communication with a partner in this context? How can open dialogue help mitigate the effects of overthinking?
Communication is crucial. When partners discuss their feelings openly, it creates transparency that can diminish misunderstandings. For instance, if someone is overthinking a text message, talking about it can help put those fears to rest. It's essential to establish a safe space where both partners feel comfortable sharing their thoughts without fear of judgment. This allows them to validate each other's feelings and fosters intimacy. Plus, knowing that you're on the same team can significantly reduce anxiety in relationships.
As we dive deeper into the theme of overthinking in relationships, I've noticed many listeners struggle with the idea of their thoughts becoming this third person that complicates communication. Can you elaborate on how overthinking manifests in typical relationship scenarios?
Absolutely. Overthinking often shows up in various ways, like second-guessing a partner's intentions or reading into every little nuance of their behavior. For instance, if one partner seems distracted during a conversation, the other might spiral into thoughts like, "Are they losing interest in me?" Or, "Did I say something wrong?" This creates a feedback loop where instead of addressing the feeling directly, they let their mind run wild with assumptions.
That makes a lot of sense. It seems like the key issue is how these unchallenged thoughts can lead to misunderstandings. How can someone recognize when they are in that overthinking cycle, and what steps can they take to break free from it?
Recognizing overthinking often starts with awareness. One effective method is to pay attention to your emotional responses. If you find yourself feeling anxious or upset without a clear reason, it could be a sign that your mind is overanalyzing a situation. Once you identify this, take a step back and ask yourself if your thoughts are based on facts or assumptions. Practicing mindfulness can help ground you in the present moment, allowing you to separate your thoughts from reality.
Mindfulness is a great tool. Many people also find journaling helpful. Would you recommend that as a strategy to combat overthinking?
Definitely. Journaling serves as an excellent outlet for those swirling thoughts. It allows individuals to externalize their feelings, making it easier to assess whether their concerns are valid. Writing down worries can clarify what's truly bothering them versus what might simply be their mind racing. Plus, it can help track patterns over time, providing insights into recurring thoughts that may need addressing.
That's a powerful strategy. It really emphasizes the importance of self-reflection. Moving forward, how can couples support each other when one partner tends to overthink? What role does open communication play in that?
Open communication is vital. Partners need to create a safe space where they can express their fears and insecurities without judgment. This means actively listening and validating each other's feelings. If one partner is caught in overthinking, the other can encourage them to express what they're feeling rather than suppressing it. This not only helps to clear the air but also strengthens the emotional bond, making it easier to tackle issues collaboratively.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the complexities of overthinking in relationships. In the previous segments, we discussed how overthinking can act like a third person, creating distance and conflict. Today, I want to focus on the signs that indicate when overthinking has taken over. What do you think are some common indicators that someone is overthinking in their relationship?
That's a great question. One major sign is when a person finds themselves replaying conversations or events in their mind, often analyzing every word and gesture. They might also experience heightened anxiety or second-guessing themselves, which can lead to miscommunication. Additionally, they may become overly cautious, avoiding conversations or situations because they're worried about how things might go. These behaviors can create a feedback loop that only fuels their anxiety.
Exactly, and it can be exhausting for both partners. But what about the coping mechanisms? What strategies can someone use to break free from that cycle of overthinking?
Great point. A few effective strategies include setting designated worry times, where you allow yourself to think about those concerns, but only for a limited time. Mindfulness practices, such as meditation or journaling, can also help bring clarity and reduce anxiety. Moreover, open communication with your partner about your feelings can foster understanding and reassurance. Sometimes, just vocalizing our thoughts can diminish their power. Lastly, engaging in physical activities can shift focus and release pent-up thoughts and emotions.
Welcome back to our ongoing exploration of overthinking in relationships. Today, we dive deeper into how our minds can sometimes act as an unwanted third party. So, guest, can we unpack the idea of the mind as a third person? How does this concept manifest in a relationship?
Absolutely. The mind can become this intrusive entity, creating doubts and anxieties where they might not exist. For instance, when one partner receives a text and doesn't reply immediately, the other person might start to spiral into thoughts. Are they upset? Did I say something wrong? This mental narrative can lead to unnecessary conflict, taking focus away from the actual relationship.
That's a great point. It's like the mind fills in the gaps with its own stories. How can couples recognize when this is happening, though? What are the signs that overthinking is hijacking their emotional landscape?
One major sign is if you find yourself constantly questioning your partner's actions or motives. Another indicator is if conversations frequently veer into misunderstandings or accusations based on assumptions rather than facts. Couples might also notice increased anxiety or even physical symptoms like tension, headaches, or stomach issues. These are all signals that the mind might be running wild, creating a narrative that doesn't align with the relationship's reality.
Those are really insightful signs to look out for. So, what strategies can couples employ to manage this overthinking? How do they reclaim their relationship from this mental intruder?
Communication is key. Couples should practice open dialogue about their feelings and concerns. Instead of making assumptions, they can ask questions and clarify intentions. Another effective strategy is mindfulness. Being present in the moment can help ground themselves and reduce anxiety. Simple practices like deep breathing or even setting aside time for heart-to-heart discussions can make a big difference in mitigating overthinking.
I love that. Mindfulness can truly transform interactions. Are there any tools or resources you'd recommend for couples who might be struggling with this?
Definitely. There are many great resources available. Couples therapy can provide a structured environment to explore these thoughts together. There are also apps focused on mindfulness and communication skills, like Couples Therapy Companion or Headspace for Couples. Books like The Relationship Cure by John Gottman can also provide valuable insights and exercises designed to strengthen communication and reduce misunderstandings.
Welcome back to our series on overthinking everything. Today, we're diving deeper into how overthinking can manifest in our relationships. You know, it often feels like our minds become this third entity in our interactions. What's something you've noticed about how overthinking impacts communication between partners?
Absolutely, the cycle of overthinking can really distort communication. When one partner starts overanalyzing a simple text or a comment made in passing, it can lead to unnecessary conflicts. Instead of addressing the core issue, they might focus on the what-ifs. For instance, if someone says something neutral, the other might think, what did they really mean by that? This can spiral into a whole series of assumptions, which often aren't grounded in reality at all.
That's so true. It's fascinating how a seemingly minor detail can turn into a major source of anxiety. Do you have strategies that you recommend for individuals trying to break free from this pattern of overthinking? How can they communicate more effectively to mitigate these issues?
Definitely. One effective strategy is the clarity check. This involves openly asking your partner about their feelings or intentions directly instead of making assumptions. For example, if you feel uncertain about a comment they made, simply ask, "Hey, what did you mean by that?" This encourages transparency and can alleviate the anxiety of speculation. Also, practicing mindfulness can bring awareness to when thoughts start to spiral. Taking a step back to process emotions can help partners respond more thoughtfully rather than react impulsively.
Those strategies sound incredibly practical. I love the idea of a clarity check. It promotes open dialogue. What about when one partner is more prone to overthinking than the other? How can the partner who isn't overthinking offer support without getting frustrated?
Great question. Patience is key here. The partner who tends to overthink needs reassurance, so the other should practice active listening. Instead of dismissing their concerns, they can say things like, "I understand why you might feel that way." Additionally, it can help to establish a safe space for discussions. Setting aside time to talk without distractions can make a huge difference. It's crucial to validate feelings while gently guiding the conversation back to reality. Empathy goes a long way in strengthening the bond and reducing that feeling of being overwhelmed.
As we approach the end of our discussion today, let's reflect on the concept of overthinking in relationships. It's fascinating how our minds can transform into this third person who constantly analyzes and critiques. Can you share some strategies that have worked for your clients in overcoming this tendency to overthink?
Absolutely. One effective strategy is mindfulness. Encouraging individuals to practice mindfulness helps ground them in the present moment rather than getting lost in a loop of hypothetical scenarios or past grievances. Simple techniques like deep breathing or even short meditation can help reduce that mental chatter. Another approach is cognitive restructuring, challenging those negative thoughts by questioning their validity and considering alternative, more positive perspectives.
That's really insightful. I can see how challenging those negative thought patterns can pave the way for healthier communication in relationships. It reminds me of the importance of open dialogue. When partners can share their insecurities and fears without judgment, it creates a safe space. What advice do you have for individuals who feel their overthinking is affecting their partner's mental health?
Great point. It's essential for individuals to recognize how their mental processes impact not just themselves but also their partners. One key tactic is to communicate openly about feelings of overthinking. This transparency can alleviate some of the pressure. Additionally, engaging in regular check-ins with each other can foster understanding. Encouraging your partner to express how they feel about your thought patterns, and being receptive to that feedback, is vital. Remember, it's about creating a supportive environment where both can thrive.
As we wrap this up, it's clear that navigating overthinking in relationships is a collective journey. By fostering mindfulness, open communication, and mutual support, couples can mitigate the impact of that third person in their dynamic. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise today. Any final thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Thank you for having me. My final thought would be to encourage everyone to be kind to themselves. Overthinking is a common struggle, and it's okay to seek help if it feels overwhelming. Remember, relationships thrive when both partners feel heard and valued. Embrace the journey of learning and growing together, and don't hesitate to reach out for support when needed. It's all part of the process.